Good conversation. I think it's the one thing I noted is that the conversation kept going. There's obviously lots to talk about, and I'm going to keep the conversation going here as well. I'd like to think that what I'm going to talk about is rooted in hope and opportunity, but of course you got to go into the dark places to come out the other side and talking about hope and opportunity. Let's keep going with that. But I'm going to start with asking you a question. I know you just got done with questions, but I'm going to ask you another one. How many here own a car or have owned a car in the past? It's a simple one. This is easy. It's not going to hurt. Okay, so to know, again, how many have owned a car, had a car? I'm not going to call you up on stage. Trust me here. Okay. All right. How many of you have a particular trusted mechanic that you go to? You know, that one that you go to? Just a few of you or a bunch of you? It's okay. And how many of you, have referred, friends or family to that particular trusted mechanic? So, yeah. So the point of the matter is we work on trusted relationships. Businesses worked on trusted relationships for quite a while. And the point of the matter is it doesn't start or it doesn't end with just a relationship, between a customer and a vendor. And as you build your businesses, you got to think about the other relationships that are going on. It's relationships, you have maybe with your partners, and it's relationships you have also with your employees. And if you think about that, then it's, I'm talking about, well, if you think about those relationships, there's an economics of trust that come along with each of those relationships. And if you think about with your customer, and it goes back to that trusted mechanic, so if you've got that relationship with the customer, and it's a trusted relationship, what does that translate to? So it translates to things like brand loyalty. So that means your customer keeps coming back to you. So that means it's a better and it's a more consistent revenue stream. If it's a positive reputation, that means it helps with new relationships and new customers. So it's that word of mouth. So the fact that you're referring perhaps your mechanic to somebody else means that you're generating new business for your mechanic. So that's an important part of creating new business. And that can also translate to things like reduced marketing costs, and a cost of acquisition of customer has reduced as well. And it's all because it's based on that relationship of trust. Now, if you think about partner relationships, and I think of things like suppliers, what does a trusted relationship with a supplier mean in terms of building the economics of trust? Well, if you think about negotiating a relationship with a supplier, if it's a trusted relationship, then your transaction costs or your negotiation costs over time start to go down, because you build relationships with a trusted supplier, then there's net cost savings because perhaps you can get better costs, you can get longer term relationships, means volume discounts and things of that sort. And those longer term relationships means net that it's better for the vendor and it's better for you, and it means that there's better economies and better cost savings for you and better for the vendor at the same time. And it's also, if you think about the relationships with your employees as well, and I think maybe we don't think about that enough, is, why does it matter to your employees? But if your employee, it matters to them because it's higher job satisfaction and it's lower turnover as well. If they're working for a company that believes in the product and they believe in what they're doing, and that can lead to higher productivity, and it leads in, maybe a little bit more loyalty as well. So trust is an important element, across multiple stakeholders when it comes to building a business. But with AI in general, and we've talked about it, and there's lots and lots of examples out there, there does seem to be this deficiency of trust when we start talking about AI. And I think in many instances, I think it's safe to say that it's almost a guilty until proven innocent sort of perspective, where it's like, prove to me that I can trust you, as opposed to I trust you until you've proved to me that I can't trust you. And that makes the world a slightly different place. And it leads to some very interesting behaviors out there. And I was quite interested when back in March when Elon, spearheaded the notion of, let's take a pause on this thing called AI until we get our ducks in order, because, quite frankly, it has the potential to kill the world and to wipe us all out. So let's everybody put a pause on it until we put everything in place. And if you look at what transacted since that point in time, the voluntary codes of conduct that have come out since that time, it's not just in Canada, but it's in the UN and the G7, and we've heard it this morning. The U.S. has put out their executive order, the president's executive order, and in everything that's going on at the UK Safety Summit. And I was quite interested to hear that the UK, or the United States, and China are collaborating on trying to find ways to create safe AI. And when do you ever hear that uttered in the same sentence at the same time? And so these are very interesting times, and how often in times of the past, when we're building trusted relationships that involve either markets or technologies, have we gone to this sort of extent? And yet, this is where we find ourselves today when we're talking about AI. And again, just going back to Elon's request to put the halt on putting a stop on development. Like, who could have seen it coming? But guess what? Nobody did put that halt on it. And why should we have expected everybody to put the stop on everything that was going on? And it didn't. And nor should we, in my opinion. I think it's obviously it's part of our world, it's part of business, and we need to figure out how do we make and create opportunity out of it. So it makes me pause and say, so what is it makes AI so different? Because until we get to the root cause of that, how is it that we can extract and capitalize on what is the opportunity around AI? And what makes it so different with things of the past? And in particular, what rattled around in my mind is the notion of nuclear energy in particular. And I realized it wasn't until I submitted this slide deck that probably, a nuclear explosion probably wasn't the sort of the image that I was trying to say here. Is not that AI is going to kill us all and blow up the world. But it did come up in one of the talks earlier today, and one of the three things that I think that makes AI different is the access to tools. That's very different in terms of the fact that anybody can create AI applications very easily and very quickly today, unlike back in the days, and even today, when it comes to creating nuclear energy and the fission bomb and things of that sort. And just a couple of examples of that, and it happened at Communitech just this past weekend. There was a hackathon of first-year students, and it was organized by a first-year student. And the notion is use AI, and in particular generative AI, ChatGPT, create some applications. What can you do in 12 hours? And one of the winning entries was a group of students put together an application that fully autonomously ordered a pizza from a random pizza place from around Kitchener that was defined by the spinning of a wheel. And sure enough, it fully autonomously ordered a pizza, and the pizza showed up at the tannery in Kitchener. And this was done by a group of students in 12 hours. And the fact is that these kinds of things are happening all the time. The last time I checked, those same students probably weren't creating, I probably don't want to know, creating nuclear bombs in their basements or around hackathons. But the fact that these things are happening so quickly by people that in some cases, some of these students had never used these tools before and are able to come in such a short period of time, have this kind of impact, means that something very different is happening. And the ubiquity and the access to these tools is a big part of that. The other part, the second element, is sort of what I'm calling the multitude of risk vectors. So there's a lot going on when it comes to creating AI applications. And each one of them means that there's things that has the potential to go wrong. And again, the benefit of being late in the program for an AI conference is a lot of those things have already been talked about. We've talked about bias, we've talked about job displacement, we've talked about risk associated with the lack of explainability around algorithms and things of that sort. And these things, although maybe unintentional, all represent risk vectors, and they have to be taken into consideration. And with the rate and pace and perhaps the lack of literacy around the fact that these are risk vectors represent general risk in terms of where things can go wrong. And this is net new. And when you've got a bunch of people having the ability to create these things in short order of time, it does create risk. The third thing, and I don't know for those who have read Thomas Friedman's book, Thank You for Being Late, but this particular graph has always resonated with me. And the notion that we've passed the point in time where the humans have the ability to adapt to the rate of change of technology. And this is back in 2016. So this notion that, you can interpret it one of two ways. It's like, all right, the horse is out of the barn and, we're all doomed and technology is going to take us over. But that's not really, this graph is going to show up a little bit later. That's not the point. But the point of the matter is it kind of feels this way with AI. There's a lot going on. And back to Elon saying we should put a halt on this is kind of him saying the same thing, in my opinion. But this does figure into it. It's the pace and the rate at which things are changing does have an effect on all of this. So this is where I introduce what we're talking about, what we're leading in terms of what we call good AI at Communitech. And this effort isn't about us trying to save the world, but it is about us trying to help the world be a slightly better place. So if we talk a little bit about what we're doing with our mission, first of all, it's built on the fact that we feel that building ethics into products and services isn't an option, it's an obligation, first and foremost. So those are table stakes. This is what we have to do. No sense talking about it being a nice to have, it's a need to have. The other part about this is, I don't know how much you know about Communitech, but we're an innovation hub that's been around for over 25 years in the Waterloo region. We've been working with startups and scale-ups for the bulk of those 25 years. So we know the challenges that they face in starting and growing a business. And we can understand that there are multiple things that are vying for their time as they build those businesses. And when something like building ethics into products and services comes along, when they're also trying to make payroll, find capital, find talent, compete for talent, it's a difficult thing. And it's very easy to say, I'll deal with that problem when it becomes a problem. So it's tough to get their mind share when they don't see this necessarily as a problem. So our mission is really to work with those founders and to build on this notion of trust and help them to understand that the economics of trust indicate that they need to be doing this now, and to help them build trusted relationships with their customers, with their partners, and with their employees, because they need to do it because it makes good economic sense to do so. And we've been at this for quite a while as an organization. So this dates back to 2018 with our Tech for Good declaration. It was part of a True North conference we ran at that time in partnership with the Rideau Hall Foundation. And at that point, it was a declaration that we created in consultation with everybody that was at our conference. And from that point on, it became an ethos, which is a wonderful thing. It caused a lot of conversations. It caused a lot of people to think and talk about it, but it was an ethos. Where good AI is now, as it says, it's time for the rubber to hit the road. And we're trying to manifest tech for good and good AI and saying it's time for us to operationalize our tech for good declaration, specifically when it comes to operationalization of ethical AI. So I'm coming back now to Tom and Friedman's his graph and saying this is where the good news comes back to this. Good AI, we're really embedding what I call it, or I'm adopting the by design philosophy. And it's probably the best example of that is Ann Cavoukian's privacy by design framework. And the notion of the by design is that it's one, it's building ethics and trust into your product from the very beginning of the product life cycle and throughout. So it's not an afterthought. I think we all understand that building it as an afterthought, as a bolt-on, leads to suboptimal results. The other part of it is the notion of being human-centric. Values are built in from the beginning as well. And in doing so, we can adjust the trajectory of that human adaptability curve in doing so. So then our founders are then building superior products from the very beginning. Then the ethics become the table stakes, and all these economies of trust start to become unlocked from the very beginning. If it's an afterthought, I think all of that is squandered, and then all of it is lost, and we lose some of these key elements of it. This is the philosophy that we're building into our good AI. And this is a busy slide, so I'm not going to get into all of it, but this is really the basics and the fundamentals of our good AI framework. There's 3 tiers and 3 elements to it. One is through education and awareness, so it's that notion of how do we build that literacy for our founders so they know what matters and how to do it and why they should care. And it's not just at a corporate or a company level, it's at an employee, it's a stakeholder level as well. The second part is what does that mean specifically for them in their product, in their market? And it was mentioned earlier this morning that there's not a one size fits all when it comes to ethical AI. It's bespoke depending on the company, the product, and the market. So we understand that. And the third part of that is how do we help them deploy that? How do we actually help them operationalize that? How do we actually put that into action? With the holy grail, in my opinion, being the notion of how do we actually help them certify? How do we actually help them demonstrate that they've built ethics into their product and service, that they can demonstrate that with their customers, with their partners, and with their employees, and actually unlock and demonstrate in that in all of the relationships as they go forward. And we're doing this through a series of partnerships. And Josephine is one of them. Skills for Good is we're soon to, I'm letting the cat out of the bag, we're soon to announce our partnership. And there's a seminar that's coming up on November 15th.
And it's free.
And it's free, even better. So this is about us, through partnership, tying into subject matter experts to work with our founders to deliver them the knowledge and the skills and the expertise they need in order to be successful. It's not us doing it specifically because we're a small team. And one of my team members is here, Laura. She's one of the leads on Good AI. So we're a very small team. So we as a small team can't do it all. We need to leverage partnerships to do that. And we're working also with Vector. And is Vector in the room, Melissa? There's Melissa. Okay. We're working with the fast lane, but we're also working on some other things that we're working on with them as well. We're looking to work with Mars as well in order to build some of the content that they've got. So this is really about bringing together other people and their expertise to the table in order to make all of this happen. So as again, we're looking for partnerships, a variety of partnerships. A lot of it's around the content to deliver against those 3 tiers, but it's also about thought leadership. It's about getting out to build, what Good AI about through events, thought leadership, being ambassadors for the notion and what we're trying to do, sponsorship as well. TD, EY, and Rito Hall Foundation are our foundational sponsors in all of this. And in summary, I guess really what I want to leave you all with is that we believe that, be it ethical AI, good AI, whatever we want to call it, it's an obligation first and foremost. It's not a choice. It's an opportunity, not a constraint, because again, we want to leave this with hope and opportunity. And again, another theme that that I've heard throughout, let's lead this. It's an opportunity for us to lead and not follow. And with that, I'll thank you.